we had a wild weekend in the royal watching community, so I did think it was crucial that we caught up today.
Yeah, indeed, and that we got a decent amount of time in, so we're going to go across the news with you. So first of all, just by way of a little bit of footage, a little bit of film, here's what Her Majesty, Her Ladyship, Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, has been posting on Instagram. Check it out. Now listen, Kinsey, I've got to explain this to the audience. Those of you who have not got sort of degrees in culinary arts or are not cordon bleu chefs, don't try that, because that is only for people who are really, really skillful in the kitchen, right? I mean, where did she get her ideas from? So it's a bagel with some cream cheese and bits of fruit in it and some dried flowers. That's it. This is going to be part of her holiday special with Love Meghan on Netflix coming this Christmas, right?
Yes. I mean, wait, are we even going to talk about the fact that it directly conflicts with Catherine's Carol concert, Princess Catherine, that she's done this, so it's released basically
I didn't even know that. Or has she done it again, has she?
Classic. I mean, and the reason why I think that's interesting, or the date specifically is interesting, is because she either didn't know, she lied, or plans changed, because during her Fortune Most Powerful Women speech or sit down last month in Washington, D.C., she specifically said that the Christmas special was coming out in November. So now we see that it's coming out the week before, or it's coming out the same week that Catherine typically does her Christmas Carol concert, December 5th. I also had the press release Netflix sent to me. Do you care to hear what the press release says?
Yes, please. Yeah, of course.
Well, of course, embrace traditions and make new ones this holiday season. You do have to make a lot of new traditions when you have no friends and family left. So I get that, Meghan Markle. With Love Meghan holiday celebration arrives December 3rd. And it says, this December, join Meghan in Montecito for a magical holiday celebration. Together, friends and family deck the halls, create holiday feasts, craft heartfelt gifts, and share lots of laughs with simple how-tos to follow at home. It's a holiday wonder with warmth, tradition, and a generous dose of joy.
Excuse me, pass the sick bucket, please.
Exactly.
How does she think, Kins, why does she think that there's any point in saying, here's some bagels, here's some cream cheese, oh, look, there's bits of fruit in it, and, oh, yeah, dried flowers. What is the damn point? What's the point of that?
My friend Scott Rouse sent me the flower sprinkles, and I almost sued him. I almost called the police on him because I thought, I do not want this in my home. When I opened it, I felt like I was getting hit in the face with the potpourri aisle at a, Dillard's. Yeah. It's not appetizing at all. It's not something I would ever think to consume. Did it remind me of something that might be hovering in the bathroom, at a
bit like crushed, they're like crushed insects. So I managed to get some as well when I made my famous cookie dough cookies, and we put the, I guess they sent me this packet of dry flowers. What was it, $12 or something? And so anyway, but be utterly pointless. Very, very strange. We've still got time to talk about the weekend trip.
Wait, can I just say,
go.
It is interesting to me because it lists the executive producers for Archewell, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. Enjoy that title. And then it says a couple of other people. Why is Meghan listed as an executive producer on Harry's projects, and Harry is not listed as an executive producer on Meghan's projects? I think that if everything is hunky-dory at home and you're trying to look like a tight-knit unit, then you're going to slap his name on the project the same way you slapped your name on his polo project. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of talk at the moment about every time when they went to the Dodgers game the other week, there was a picture of him looking very scowly. And this weekend, couple of issues to discuss about the Gruesome Twosomes outing. They went to Kris Jenner's 70th birthday, a 007 James Bond theme birthday party at Jeff Bezos's 165
Were they the
million.
villains? Were they the villains
yeah,
in the
probably,
story?
Yeah. They both. She went stroking a cat like Blofeld or something. But anyway, they went to Jeff Bezos's mansion for this special party for Kris Jenner, and so Harry turned up wearing a poppy. And she didn't wear a poppy. So there's a lot of people saying, well, where's your damn poppy? And she said, well, it's because they're not widely available here in America. Well, OK, but your husband's got one. I mean, that doesn't really wash. So she probably...
You know what? I had to order an emergency poppy as a gift because I stole one of my friends. $8.99 on Amazon. I had it overnight. Meghan, you're lying. You are lying. You are lying. You are lying.
She just didn't do it, did she? She just forgot.
No, she didn't. She doesn't. She didn't just forget. She doesn't care, Kevin. She doesn't care about your traditions. She doesn't care about your history. She doesn't care about your country. She's bored by it. She doesn't like to follow the rules. She doesn't care. She continuously disrespects the institution and the country that she married into.
Well, I would tend to agree, and you know, I'm being generous when I said she forgot, because it's hard to believe she just forgot, because all she had to do was look to her left, and there's her husband with to his credit, with a great big poppy on. So why is he wearing one and she didn't? Given that they are both officially members of the royal family.
Well, yeah,
the British
Meghan, Duchess of Sussex.
Well, she's a member of the British royal family. She should have paid respect to Britain's fallen war heroes, don't you think?
Especially since Prince Harry is forcing his half-in, half-out royal status by showing up in Canada at a veterans center and saying on TV that, oh, he's so happy to visit the center that his aunt, grandmother, and great-grandmother visited, basically saying, I am the Queen's grandson. I'm forcing this half-in, half-out, strategy that the Queen specifically said you can't do. Yeah, if you're going to become the face for veterans in the Commonwealth, then the least your wife can do is wear a poppy.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk to. We're going to go to the news in just a few seconds, Kinsey. But what I'd like to talk about when we come back after the news is this continued campaign by Prince Harry to go back on what her late great Majesty the Queen wanted. She said you can't do half in, half out. You can't just do some royal duties and then swan on back to California to enjoy the sunshine there. You can't do that.
And the Kardashians.
You can't, and the Kardashians. You can't just do that. And apparently he was stunned when she said no, and he's never got over that. And he's still campaigning for that to happen, which I think disrespects her memory. And also, the king will never allow it. But you know what he's like? Once he gets an idea in his head, he's like a dog with a bone. He won't give up. The Prince Harry, for Remembrance Weekend, if you like, went up to Canada to join, I think, some probably British veterans. A lot of Canadian soldiers fought in the army. So nothing wrong with this, by the way. He hooked up with some fellow military veterans to pay tribute to the fallen, to the veterans who risked and gave their lives for their country. So he went up to do that, and then came back and went to Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party, business as usual. But the point, what people are saying is that when he went to Canada, this is the latest example of him desperately trying to show the royal family, the king and the rest of the royal family back here in Britain, look, here I am doing a Remembrance Sunday thing. I could still be really useful to the royal family.
I could contribute.
Performing frontline duties. He still hasn't given up on that idea, and he's hoping that King Charles will go, oh, never mind what my mum said, let's get him back for partial duties. Never going to happen, is it? But he won't give up.
No, and if you're anything like me, yes, I appreciate any acknowledgement of our veterans. I love our veterans all over the world. But I'm not going to forgive and forget the fact while Harry is posing for the cameras next to elderly veterans, I am not going to forgive and forget the way he treated his grandmother and his grandfather in their twilight years. You can't just take pictures next to elderly veterans and erase your horrific behavior towards two very brave people that also fought for your country, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip in their own ways. It all just looks like a PR push when it comes to Harry. By the way, did you know that the families of those veterans received an email that said Prince Harry is coming and you're not allowed to come to the venue while he's here. Under any circumstances, do not show up while Harry's here. So Harry running people, you know, keeping people away from their family members so that he can get the perfect shot, so that he can get the perfect image for his own PR ambitions. I just think it all looks highly choreographed because he realizes he you-know-what in his mess kit and is trying to generate some public support by doing the things that people fell in love with him for doing in the first place. Well, your behavior over the last 5 years told us so much more about you than the image that the palace had constructed of you that we now know to be fake and inauthentic. You know, you have turned out to be an incredibly selfish individual. So when I see the pictures of him and these elderly people in Canada, I think to myself, how unfortunate that you couldn't have shown your grandmother and your grandfather that same generosity, kindness, empathy, and compassion.
A very good point. Well said, Kinsey. But let's see where he heads next. But he's not going to. He just. It's like his obsession about getting an armed police gun guard when he comes back to Britain. He's lost that case. He's lost that case. He's lost that case. He's spent millions of pounds on it. But he won't give up. He's so stubborn, like a little kid who doesn't get his own way. And he's not going to give up on this halfway in, halfway out royal duty thing. And it's never going to happen. But you know what he's like. Let's talk
well,
about...
also, do you not see the hypocrisy in the fact that the Kardashians have spent the last 20 years of their lives selling their family secrets? That's literally how they made themselves, selling their family secrets. Look at TMZ in the last 48 hours. Kris Jenner's birthday, Kylie Jenner's cat, Kim Kardashian failing the bar exam. The Kardashians have the media on speed dial. They are not trustworthy individuals. But Harry accuses his family of doing the exact same thing, and that's unforgivable.
To be fair to the Kardashians, that's what they do. They've turned themselves into
But why is it okay for the Kardashians, and Harry claims when Harry claims his family does sell secrets about him or sells secrets, then all of a sudden it's unforgivable? And you know,
I see what you mean, yeah, but there can be no equivalence drawn. But this is the trouble. I think Meghan doesn't quite see the difference. There's no equivalence between the royal family and the Kardashians, you know.
She doesn't see the difference. The Kardashians are where they are because Kim Kardashian made a sex tape with Ray J, and Kim Kardashian, you know, releasing her underwear with details on the front of them in the last few weeks.
Oh my God.
And these are the people that she is chasing after in the United States, and she left this historic, powerful, relevant, culturally relevant institution that's built on doing things for other people. Yeah. Meghan would rather associate with the people that are so vapid, shallow, and only out to benefit themselves.
Yeah, well, that sort of fits in with everything that she adds up to, I think. Let's talk, before you go, Kins, about her movie. She's making this movie called Close Personal Friends with a small star cast. Lily Collins, was it Jack Quaid? Who else? Remind me. Anyway,
Brie Larson.
Brie Larson. Yeah. So she's making this movie, in which she plays herself, about two couples, one famous, one not famous. Sounds mildly interesting. She says she's been inundated with scripts ever since she stopped acting 8 years ago. I kind of doubt that. And if this was the one that's tempted her back, what's so great about this one? You know, not a very star-studded cast, clearly quite a low-budget thing. She's just got to pay herself. I think she's snapped up the first offer she got. And the reason she's done this, according to speculation in the British press, big piece in the Daily Mail on Saturday, is she's taken this acting job because they need the money. Do you think that is the case? Do you think now the Sussexes, having lost their $100 million Netflix deal, having lost their Spotify deal, are now, you know, looking for ways to make money on a quite urgent basis?
The only reason why I question that is because they have been donating a lot of money recently. I mean, I feel like they kind of had to donate that money. We saw them donate hours before they showed up at Kris Jenner's house because they knew people would be saying online, like, people have run out of their SNAP benefits and you're partying at Jeff Bezos' house. You look ridiculous. But they have donated a significant amount of money. I mean, I really think Meghan Markle just likes the attention, but I would say what a great example of Harry and Meghan's disloyalty. They've been on the Netflix roster for 5 years now. There were plenty of opportunities for Meghan to do cameos in different Netflix films and series because Meghan Markle is mentioned in different Netflix films and series. She was just mentioned in Nobody Wants This Season 2. And that's just one example of Meghan Markle pop culture references in Netflix scripted TV and movies. So Meghan runs over to Amazon. You know, instead of giving her first cameo to Netflix, these people that have put a significant amount of money in her pocket, Harry has to apologize in Canada for wearing the Dodgers cap. I mean, where's the due diligence? Where's the loyalty? You know, Harry and Meghan are loyal to nobody except for themselves, or who's willing to give them a hand.
Oh, by the way,
nobody.
So Harry, as you say, for Remembrance Weekend, went up to Toronto for Remembrance services. As I say, keep saying nothing wrong with that, by the way. But anyway, he goes up there, and the Torontans, is that what you call them? Anyway, they're taunting him and saying, "What were you doing down in LA wearing that LA Dodgers baseball cap when the LA Dodgers were playing the Toronto Blue Jays in the World Series? Why weren't you wearing?" And he made some sort of joke about, "Oh, well, actually, I was just trying to cover up my bald spot." And as I mentioned to you on WhatsApp, bald spot, that is the world's biggest bald spot, isn't it? How much longer is he going to hang on to those 7 strands of red hair around his balding pate?
I'd say it's karma for how ugly he was about Prince Williams. And now Prince Williams literally being voted the sexiest bald man in the world. So, but yeah, he also said he was in duress, and he had to because the owner of the Dodgers had invited him. Nice little, you know, humble brag in that sentence that he had to because he was personally invited by the owners of the Dodgers.
Yeah, okay then, all right. Because, of course, Meghan wore an LA Dodgers cap as well, and she's got this big Canadian affinity, isn't she, having made suits up there. So it was felt that she betrayed the Blue Jays, and so did Harry. But just before you go, Kinsey, we discussed this before, but just how worried do you think the Sussexes should be about their titles? Because I'm hearing more and more that Prince William, I don't want him to ascend to the throne anytime soon, obviously, because of King Charles and all that. But when he does take power, their titles will be gone, along with the former Prince Andrew, now Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. He's going to take their titles away, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Paula Froelich of News Nation reported last week that William will never willingly be in the same room as Harry again, except perhaps at the king's deathbed and possibly the funeral. And according to her sources, William might not even want him at the funeral. I doubt that his courtiers would allow a full ban, but that's what's being reported. And they're saying that just Harry was never this spoiled before marrying Meghan. He was not this bitter. He understood what the rules were. And that this new person that they're saying that married Meghan is unrecognizable to Prince William. And they, you know, even with the way that Harry announced his trip to Canada in the middle of a very important trip between Earthshot and COP30 for Prince William, They're saying that it was deliberate. Harry is a spoiled brat who wants the attention. He's very jealous of William, and he's not getting good guidance. He looks miserable all the time. And I would say, yes, he looked so miserable outside of Kris Jenner's birthday party.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? I mean, and he didn't look too pleased for much of the time at the LA Dodgers last year. Every time we see him out these days, he's kind of scowling. Now, we always sort of speculate, you know, just how happy are things behind the gilded gates of Montecito Towers. I mean, more and more, he's kind of betraying perhaps that things aren't that happy at home because he looks so permanently miserable, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. Well, and he knows that it's not just the media that are documenting his life now. It's happening inside his home. You know, Meghan Markle's there putting together a full production reel when she goes out one night to a Dodgers game. There were probably instructions not for everybody to have their cell phone out at Kris Jenner's party. But if there were, I can't imagine how obnoxious that reel would have looked coming from Meghan Markle to prove that, you know, people know who she is and she can get a picture with Gayle King still. So I think that he doesn't like being on display in the way that she's got him on display lately.
Yeah, like he's playing a bit part in the real life movie of her life, and he looks very fed up, but we'll have a talk about that maybe later in the week. Well, look, let's start to get to grips with what's happened. I mean, Tim Davie and Deborah Turnis have gone. What I'm finding astonishing is listening to and reading the tweets of people like Nick Robinson and John Simpson, who put their defenestration, their departure, down to just one thing: a right-wing conspiracy to undermine the BBC. Nothing else. Not the long procession of non-stop mistakes they've both been making for 5 years, or in Davie's case, 5 years. Don't forget Deborah Turnis, who presided over a kind of frighteningly biased anti-Israel BBC newsroom. She was Tim Davie's very special appointment. So that disastrous duo have gone. But this idea by The Guardian, by Nick Robinson, by John Timpson, oh, you know, they shouldn't have gone. This is a capitulation to the forces of darkness, you know, who mean the BBC harm. Don't be ridiculous. In the end, there has to be accountability. Tim Davie, as I said to you last week, he's been like the Keystone Cop Director General. Nothing has gone right for him. Time after time, scandal after crisis after scandal, every single one of them he hopelessly mishandled. We can't go on like this. He had to go, not because of a right-wing conspiracy, but because he's useless.
I mean, I'm like you, I'm astonished by how many apparently serious figures seem to think that this is all some kind of extraordinary plot, in some way led by Trump, followed by Nigel Farage somewhere in the wings, as if that's what it is, as if this is pure politics rather than actually going to the heart of what the point of the BBC is, its core offer, which is supposed to be unimpeachable, impartial journalism. But we all know that for a very long time that hasn't been the case. And yes, I mean, it's glorious in a way for those of us that have long felt the BBC bias to have such an example now that they can't talk their way out of this one. There it is, absolutely there for all to see. But we all know that it's much broader than that, and that is why you know, those on the right who have felt themselves the victims of this bias over a long period of time are so rightly jumping on this and saying, here, you know, now can you see it, people? Now can you see what we've been talking about all this time?
And if nothing else, you're absolutely right. This is a weird paranoia by these people. Oh, it's people out to get us. Us saying, well, look, you know, there is a thing outside of the BBC bubble in the real world. It's called accountability. If you make mistakes, you pay for them. If you keep on making them mistakes, you pay for them dearly. If you keep on making mistakes, you get sacked. You have to go, which is what's happened. I mean, technically, Davey and Turness have resigned, fallen on their swords, making a great thing about how, you know, I had to take responsibility, the buck stopped with me. Yeah, well, you haven't for the past 5 years. So excuse me if I don't fall over in wonder at your generous spirit. They've been forced to go, quite clearly. The BBC has said enough is enough. I would imagine the government, Keir Starmer and the gang, saying to the BBC governors, look, we've got a diplomatic incident here. The BBC has defamed the President of the United States, Britain's greatest ally. He is fuming. We need to throw him a bone. There you go, Donald. They've gone. It hasn't appeased him. Well, look, this is, I think I was talking to you at this stage last week, Isabel, and this is me with my crystal ball. Surely, for Tim Davey, as I say, the Keystone Cop Director General, who has just presided over scandal after crisis over scandal, and on and on and on. You know, what are we talking about? We're talking about well, the constant Gary Lineker tweets, culminating in the anti-Semitic tweet that finally got him his marching orders. We're talking about Hugh Edwards, the lead anchor, who turns out to be a paedophile. We're talking about the Gaza documentary that failed to tell viewers that the teenage narrator host was the son of a Hamas government official, the Deputy Agricultural Minister to be precise, and of course the horror, the debacle of Bob Villan at Glastonbury and his anti-Semitic chanting that they allowed to go on, death to the IDF. So all of that, and now this is the worst. This is the worst. This is twisting the truth about the President of the United States of America. I think he's going to sue Donald Trump. He's going to sue the BBC. And I do think, let me get both your opinions. I think Davey and possibly Head of News Deborah Turness have to go.
They need to go.
They have to go.
They need to go.
Yeah. So I suspect the BBC might be hearing from Mr. Trump's lawyers. Interesting times. Well, you know, this is your Uncle Kev, Isabel. I know what's going on. I predicted all this. I also predicted that, as you just saw, that was talking to you the last bit, by the way, that Donald Trump would sue. And we learned today he's fired off the legal letter of all legal letters to the BBC, calling for a full and effusive public apology, a full explanation of what happened here, and probably the most interesting tenet of his letter, $1 billion in damages. This is massive. This is a disaster for the BBC. And frankly, although it's going to cost us all money, licence fee payer money, if they have to pay Donald Trump a vast sum, they thoroughly deserve it. They really do.
They do, although, as you say, it's, you know, their money is our money. And I mean, this is showmanship, isn't it? I don't think Donald Trump is really going to go through with a lawsuit.
He is. No, he will.
You can't put anything past him. He
will, Isabel. He will. He'll take, I don't know, £200,000, £250,000, something like that. Just like he did with Paramount, CBS, 60 Minutes. They spliced together Kamala Harris to make her look a lot better and to make him look a lot worse. Similar kind of dispute about splicing and editing and doctoring. He sued them, I think, for $100 million, and he got $16.5 million. He will sue. They'll have to pay him. And frankly, I know that hits us in the pocket, but you know, that's the way of the world. You can all these debates. I'm listening to people like Emily Maitlis and things going, what about him? You know, he's a liar too. What about all the lies he's told? It doesn't matter.
Irrelevant.
Whataboutery isn't in the game here. They doctored that speech that he made on January the 6th, 2021, to make it look as if he called on the crowd to get up there and fight, to cause trouble, to incite violence. He did nothing of the sort, and that is an open and shut libel case, and the BBC better get their checkbook out, because they cannot win this case.
Well, I also thought it was extraordinary that the chairman should call it an error of judgment. It wasn't an error of judgment, it was an actual calculation. You know, an error of judgment would be if you were just sort of weighing up, you know, maybe we'll do it this way, maybe we'll do it that way, you know, perhaps different lighting or something. That is massively understating what happened here. It was a conspiracy. It was an actual plot to make Donald Trump look much worse than he is, to completely misrepresent his position at that time. And I just don't think you can waft it away by calling it an error of judgment.
It wasn't an error of judgment. I mean, the interesting aspect of this is who actually did it. And it's possible that the bosses of Panorama didn't quite realise. It's possible. It may just be a left-wing editor, a Trump derangement syndrome executive lower down the ladder. Someone that doesn't really matter in the end. Someone did it. That was not an error of judgment. That was deliberate doctoring to make Donald Trump look bad. Everybody knows what that was. And because Davey and Turnus have had to go, because they resigned yesterday, that's an inherent admission of guilt. So Samir Shah, I suspect, with that ludicrous, he didn't apologise to Donald Trump, massive great statement saying error of judgment. I think he has to go too. You know, the BBC has got to get real. These people who think that they're, you know, it's the poor old BBC, people are out to get it. No, they have made a fundamental, profound legal mistake here. And Samir Shah should have got real there. That statement alone may cost the BBC a lot of money, because any goodwill that Donald Trump was prepared to cut the BBC went with the wind this morning when Samir Shah issued that ludicrous statement. Error of judgment. We know what it was. Let's have a listen to Nigel Farage, who's basically quite rightly echoing what we're all thinking now. Well, I don't want to pay nearly £180 a year for these liars anymore. Have a look at this.
I'm going to defund the BBC from its current model, be in no doubt about that. The BBC, under our plans, would be slimmed down to something very relatively small, but most of it would move to a subscription model to compete in the open market. You know, do I want it to have a basic role for news and current affairs? Yes, but it's going to have to be very, very different to the way it is now.
And when, you know, it's another thing. When the BBC say, oh, these people, these right-wingers mean us wrong and all that, I don't mean the BBC any harm. I certainly don't want to put anybody out of work. I hope the BBC carries on and employs lots of people and they're able to pay their mortgages, you know, the way the cookie crumbles. I hope that carries on. But I attack the BBC. I don't mean it harm. I mean it... that I want it to change. I demand it. I don't see why I should pay for it anymore. If it's going to put out this biased, lying rubbish and put out terrible, terrible programmes, then it should learn to pay for itself. A subscription model or something. Then you'll find its programmes would become much better. Its dramas would improve. It might actually, if one time, produce a funny comedy because it would need to live on its wits. Right now, it gets £3.5 billion a year from us, the sucker licence fee payers, and that's what I want to end. So I don't mean it harm. I just mean its business model harm, which I think is destructive. It's unfair. Very bad for entrepreneurialism in the media industry generally. Just before we go to break, let's have a listen to Deborah Turnus, who quit yesterday. This was her talking this morning.
I would like to say it has been the privilege of my career to serve as the CEO of BBC News and to work with our brilliant team of journalists. I stepped down over the weekend because the buck stops with me. But I'd like to make one thing very clear. BBC News is not institutionally biased. That's why it's the world's most trusted news provider. Of course our journalists aren't corrupt. Our journalists are hard-working people who strive for impartiality, and I will stand by their journalism.
Is there institutional bias at the BBC?
There is no institutional bias. Mistakes are made, but there's no institutional bias.
But why weren't the mistakes dealt with on Trump, on anti-Semitism, on women's rights?
I'm sure that story will emerge.
Ha! Ha! You know, I mean, again, she's in denial. She's deluded. The truth is, everybody now thinks the BBC does have a biased newsroom. When she says it strives for impartiality, well, it doesn't when it comes to Gaza and Israel and Palestine. It's a joke when it comes to those topics. It is pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, to the extent that a lot of Jewish people will tell you they think it's anti-Semitic.
Well, I'd like to have a conversation when we come back about how awful it was over Brexit as well, because I'm among many people that really bear the scars of that, having been a very regular BBC contributor at that time. I mean, there is no doubt whatsoever about its pro-EU bias during those years. And it's not as if that subject has gone away in any shape or form.
Stephen, we'll get on to the legal niceties or lack thereof of the BBC's strategy in just a moment. But let's go back to this weird syndrome we're all watching unfold before our very eyes for the last few days since the dramatic resignation of the Director General Tim Davie, the Keystone Cop Director General, who for 5 years never put a foot right. And then, you know, you got John Simpson and all that lot going, he was a very good Director General. No, he wasn't. He was absolutely catastrophic. Deborah Turner's very good head of news. Yeah, except for under her watch, BBC journalism plummeted into the gutter in a sea of impartiality and biased reporting of Gaza, trans issues, climate change, Donald Trump, you name it, they're biased about it. So these two were disastrous. And nevertheless, over the last couple of days, we've had to endure them, demonstrating, showcasing this weird syndrome that no matter how rubbish the BBC is, no matter how bad the mistake is, no matter how far it falls, the people who work there think it is the greatest broadcaster on the face of the earth. It is nothing of the sort. Here's Tim Davie. He addressed the staff today, Director General. He's still going in, by the way. He was earning £447,000 a year. I guess still does until he finishes his notice period. £447,000 a year. Here he is addressing the staff.
I'm here to lead and support the BBC. I'm very, very proud of our journalists in this building. They're doing work, I think, that's incredibly important. I want to thank every one of them. They're doing a wonderful job. Also, everyone across the BBC doing their thing for the UK. And personally, I'm here to lead and support them. The BBC's going to be thriving, and I support every one of the team. I'm very proud of them. Thank you very much.
Is that a couple of men in white coats I saw behind about to drag him away to a waiting Black Maria or something? Here's until recently, the head of news, the chief executive of news at the BBC, Deborah Turner.
I would like to say it has been the privilege of my career to serve as the CEO of BBC News and to work with our brilliant team of journalists. I stepped down over the weekend because the buck stops with me. But I'd like to make one thing very clear. BBC News is not institutionally biased. That's why it's the world's most trusted news provider.
Yeah, I mean, is it anymore the world's most trusted news provider after its coverage of Gaza? The thing about, you know, its blatantly pro-Palestine, anti-Israel coverage of Gaza, as you said, one barrister-led report cited more than 1,500 examples of pro-Palestine, anti-Israel mistakes, lies, if you like. We learnt only on Sunday, as Deborah Turner considered her future, that the BBC News department was having to apologise twice every week for serious mistakes about Gaza. Always mistakes in favour of Palestine and anti-Israel every single time. So BBC journalism is not biased. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And what is Davie talking about? Oh, the BBC's got a very bright future. The BBC's future has never been more tenuous. These two idiots have led it to its lowest ebb ever, I would suggest.
Yes, Kev. And actually, I was reflecting on in the break because I can sense that you're actually genuinely angry at this.
I am.
and I think it's because you are an old school journalist. And I know, and I can tell the public, and cover your ears because you might not like this bit, but the journalists are not always well respected amongst the public.
We're next to estate agents and second-hand car dealers. That's what people think of journalists. They're absolutely right, of course, but go on.
But I've had a Damascene conversion. I've spent now 5-6 years amongst journalists, and I can say that most of them are seriously committed to the truth. I mean, you're allowed to share your opinion, so people may disagree with your opinion sometimes, but you won't lie to them. And all these journalists who I've met, who I respect, they will not lie to the public. And what the BBC has done is, for purely ideological reasons, it has lied to the public. And I can sense that you're genuinely angry with this. And then for them to narcissistically walk in the next day in front of the cameras and tell everybody how absolutely amazing they are, how terribly shiny and glamorous their hair is, and how they were always perfect all along, and this is somehow just somebody else is getting at them. It is just absolutely galling to watch. And yeah, I think with my serious hat on, I think the BBC has never been a greater risk.
I agree. I totally agree.
Catastrophically low. And the other thing, Kev, to be perfectly honest, is at least we have different ideas. You know, you and I don't agree on everything. We're not going to. Talk doesn't agree on everything. It doesn't have like a mantra. Once these woke people were in charge of the BBC, you literally knew their opinion on everything. You knew how they voted on Brexit. You know which person they want to win the US presidential election. You know which person they want to win the Canada election. You know which person they want to win the France election. You know which person they want to win our election. You know absolutely every position they have the minute you met them, and they just become very dull. That is fundamentally boring. That's not interesting. You know that, and they therefore, I mean, that itself will kill the viewership, let alone actively lying and involving yourselves in these levels of scandal.
Here's something to worry about, as I said in my monologue. So Deborah Turnus is gone, and in her stead is the interim head of news, a guy called Jonathan Munro, who rose without trace. Never heard of him, but he's in charge of news at the BBC now. And he insists, he said this, that by splicing together different bits of Trump's speech, 54 minutes apart, and by the way, just to get this, we could play it again, but I think everybody's seen it. I mean, Donald Trump saying, they make it look as if he goes, let's get to Capitol Hill and fight, fight, fight. You know, in actual fact, there's a 54 minutes of speech in between that, in which he says exactly the opposite. We might play that in just a second, just to remind people. Jonathan Munro says that by splicing together this speech, doctoring and manipulating this speech to make it look as if the president called for violent insurrection, get up to Capitol Hill and fight, fight, fight. He said nothing of the sort. Jonathan Munro says that by doing that, in doing that, Panorama had no intention of deceiving viewers. That's just a crock of crap, isn't it? That was the sole intention, was to deceive viewers.
Yes, well, that's a technical term, my lord. But yes,
but it is, isn't it? I mean, that's what I mean. These people, their BBC prism through which they see the world is extraordinary. I mean, who is he kidding? There was no intention to deceive. Well, what did you do it for then?
Well, I think we need to talk about the idea that these people who are in charge of the BBC and in charge of quite a lot of British public life, there was a study by the LSE that said only about 11% of people actually hold these woke views genuinely. Other people are just going along with it for self-interest, and some of us are going, this is complete tosh. We really can't trust them in positions of public life, and we really need systems which stop them getting promoted and stop them getting placed in position, when we seem to have a system that does the opposite, a system which benefits them. But they shouldn't be able to say the absolute opposite of the truth. This is Stalin-level manipulation of the media. You know, this is what we were warned about in 1984. You know, the country has always been at war with East Asia. This is just not true. Yeah. And we shouldn't be tolerating this. We need to value truth again. and give truth, you know, an objective value in our society where we all think it's what we should be aiming for. And of course, sometimes truth can be subjective, but it's not always subjective. And there are things which are right and wrong, and things which are true and false. And, you know, leaving those behind has not got us to anywhere. Pretending that men can be women has not led us to a utopia of happiness, has it?
No, the BBC has decided that men can be women. The BBC has decided that men can deliver breast milk. The BBC has decided that climate change is, without doubt, there is no argument to brook that this is a crisis that humanity faces. Well, there actually is an opposing argument that they haven't given us. Though Gaza, Trump, trans issues, climate change, the BBC...
Particularly on climate change, Kev, particularly CO2.
Yeah.
You know, we are a little rock flying around a massive ball of fire that may well have more of an impact on our climate than a tiny percentage of the makeup of the gas in our atmosphere. You know, this is just... That should be obvious. I don't understand how that was ever a questionable position. And in 2022, the Nobel Prize winner for physics supported this idea that CO2, just put it away, just stop worrying about plant food. Climate does change. We have glacial periods and interglacial periods. We're in an interglacial period that ends when we don't have ice at either pole. That's, I mean, I'm not a scientist, but even I can deal with that. That makes sense. No ice at the poles. Gotcha. Antarctica in hand, not just for the penguins anymore. Yep. But you know, this sort of the way that they didn't have any curiosity.
Well, the BBC long ago decided on its truths. It decided it knows the truth about climate change. It decided it knows the truth about trans issues, whether or not men can be women. It decided it knows the truth about Trump. Trump is bad. It decided that it knows the truth about climate change, as I say, and all of these, and Gaza as well. It's decided it knows the truth about Gaza, Israel bad, Palestine good. So its mission, what's happened under Turness's watch is the BBC News Department has been geared towards bolstering and projecting the truths that the elites at the BBC have decided. And that isn't journalism, and that's what's got them into big trouble. They thought it's okay to make the president look bad. It's okay to make Trump look bad because he is bad. That's why they're going, oh, come on, it's only Trump. You know, and both of us have our doubts about the current Conservative Party, the Tories. They've lost the plot. They've lost the support of their followers because they betrayed them over 15 years of pretending to be Labour light, the bloody idiots. You know, so I don't have much time for Kemi's crew. But the one guy among them who I think is sort of in touch with reality and the fears and the worries and the concerns of the people is the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, who's got a knack for zoning in on things that people are upset about. So recently he went and filmed all the fare dodgers on the London Underground system. It's a really good little video. Anyway, he's done it again. He's zoned in on a growing problem, which is, you know, particularly among workmen, you know, guys who have vans with all their tools. They're always getting broken into. And all of these tools that are stolen, they're very valuable, invariably end up at car boot sales. Now, this was one on Hounslow Heath to the west of London, where Robert Jenrick went there and found all these tools, but encountered some of the guys who were selling them. Shall we say, the atmosphere swiftly soured. Have a look.
It's one of the worst car boot sales in the country for selling stolen tools. Hundreds, thousands of tools. Lots of tools have got tradesmen's marks on them.
There's a bloke's name on that, Jamie. Someone's nicked that, haven't they? Are you going to make up some money out of that guy? This is just the contents of some bloke's van, isn't it? Where is this all from?
It's not got to do with you. You know what's going to happen now? It's going to be a lot of us. We don't want to do. Can you just go on, please? Just go on.
There's going to be a lot of you do what?
Just go away, please.
Where do you get all of these from? Where'd Where'd you get a container of tools from?
I don't know, he didn't tell me, because I would buy it as well from there.
How much did you get that for? 100 quid? That's a bargain, isn't it? It looks almost brand new. You're the owner of this site, aren't you?
Correct, yeah.
But you honestly think that everything being sold here is completely legit?
Yeah, otherwise we'd...
Where do you think they're getting all these tools from?
Well, I don't know that.
If I owned a car boot sale and was making money out of this, I wouldn't want the car boot sale to be selling stolen goods.
We don't permit anybody to sell stolen goods whatsoever.
How do you enforce that?
We give everybody a leaflet on the way in.
You're making it sound like it's all a bit of a joke.
And then he got told to F off. But he's got some balls, hasn't he? And that is an interesting issue to zone in on. You don't sort of think about it much. I mean, I only recently, a couple of weeks ago, poor guy, nice guy. My house sort of backs onto a mainish road. It's the back of the house. And I get this plaintive knock on my door, and I open it. Nice guy, young guy, probably in his late 20s. He goes, "Excuse me, sir, you know, you didn't see anything out of the back of your house at all?" I said, "No, I'm sorry, I didn't." Why? He said, "Well, my van was there, it's just been cleaned out. Somebody's opened it and smashed into it and cleaned it out." So this is a problem, and I think it's good politics when people like Jenrick do things like this. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are I absolutely love it, and I wish more politicians were bravely doing stuff like this. This is down and dirty. This is what reporters do. You know, they go out and they knock on doors and they get told to F off and many other things besides, and that is how you find stuff out. You don't find stuff out sitting in your nice office in the Palace of Westminster. You find stuff out by going out there and eyeballing people, and you can tell when they're lying. You know, he stood there and asked those guys, "Where'd you get your stuff from?" And they were blustering and flustering and flammeling and disseminating. It's stolen stuff. You know, he's
clearly,
right about.
yeah, 100%. It's all stolen.
Clearly. Yeah. And then you've got the organiser going, "Yeah, we'd never allow anyone to sell stolen goods." Oh, right.
Yeah.
So how are you enforcing that? Well, we put a little leaflet round. Brilliant, guys. What an effective policy that is. So well done, Robert Jenrick. I'm a massive fan. Not generally a fan of many Tories, but I think he does a great job. And, you know, he alone is just somehow keeping a tiny bit of the Tory party relevant.
I agree. He is their star performer without a shadow of a doubt. Kemi Badenoch, beware. Still with law and order, Isabel. Let's talk about David Lammy, Justice Secretary, and this bizarre continuing syndrome of our prisons constantly letting dangerous prisoners out by mistake. So the tally from the 1st of April 2024, so sort of last year, until October the 31st, just gone. So from October 24 to just a couple of weeks ago, we have let out 353 prisoners in error, including 90 sex offenders and 90 sex or violent offenders. 353, and one of them, a Albanian drug dealer, who was released from prison by mistake, is still at large and has been on the run for more than a year. David Lammy keeps blustering, "I'm furious about this," but it keeps happening. Those numbers are extraordinary. So what is that? I mean, it's basically almost one a day. What's going on?
I don't know. I don't get it, because it's quite a process to release prisoners. I mean, there's an awful lot of paperwork involved, isn't there? You don't just get kind of, "Oh, right, okay, it's your day-to-day, we'll open the door, bye-bye." There's actually quite a build-up to it. So there's clearly something fundamentally flawed about either the process itself or the people operating the process. And it may actually be more to do with the second, you know, people simply not reading things properly, pressing the wrong buttons, blundering around. I don't know. I didn't know this was a thing until quite recently, but clearly it is a thing. It's not even a new thing. It's been going on at the rate of, you know, 1 or 2 people or more per week for a long time. What's concerning is that there seems to be an uptick in it.
The last the most recent was apparently on November the 3rd. So what is that? 8 days ago, 9 days ago, whatever. And David Lammy told MPs today, or was it yesterday? I've been informed this afternoon that HM Prisons and Probation Service are investigating a further case of a potential release in error on the 3rd of November, who may still be at large. And you talked about the paperwork. Now, if you remember last week, an asylum seeker, sex offender, and also a fraudster were accidentally mistakenly released from Wandsworth Prison, a notorious Victorian outmoded monstrosity building in South London. Now, you talk about the paperwork. Well, it transpired that literally that's what we're dealing with. Most of these prisons, Wandsworth included, don't really have computers. They still use staples and bits of paper. So, you know, they're like something out of a bygone age. Something needs to be done about this. You know, buy them some computers, Mr. Lammy. Why don't you try that?
I mean, I think if I were in charge, I'd be inclined to say no one gets released until we've worked out why all these mistakes are happening.
Yeah.
You know, get to the bottom of it. In the meantime, guys, sorry, but you're just staying put until we've worked out why we keep messing this up.
It's just extraordinary. So it's come to the point now, hasn't it, Isabel, that, you know, we sort of live almost entirely amid a blizzard of people being released from prison. Sometimes deliberately and legitimately because they haven't got enough prison cells, so they keep letting out drugs dealers and rapists and God knows who, literally to make room for more prisoners. And then other times by mistake. So what's happening is some of our most dangerous citizens or residents of this country are just, for whatever reason, on an almost constant basis being let out of jail. This is not a country that is functioning on a sensible level, is it?
Well, I think we've got to add another category of people that shouldn't be rampaging around or loitering, whatever else they do on our streets. And that is all the people who should have been sent to prison in the first place and never got custodial sentence. As all of that is rolled back, you know, even if you get a guilty conviction, you get a guilty verdict, and people are getting you know, some pretty serious offences are getting away without a custodial sentence. So you think about all those people who are now floating around in our midst, and then add in another category, which is the people who have done bad things but are never actually brought to justice in the first place. And you perhaps begin to see just why there are so many stolen goods in that car boot sale.
Yeah, and yes, well said. Also, I suspect there are a lot of people in the Labour Party, maybe Starmer included, because he is secretly pretty far left, old Starmer, who don't really approve of prison. They don't think it's a very nice thing. They don't think it's a form of punishment that fits in with their be kind ideology. And I just wonder about that, because it seems to me if a government can turn around and say, right, that disused military base, by next week we will fill with asylum seekers. Couldn't they similarly convert that disused military base into a kind of a prison? If they wanted to, I think they could find space to put prisoners, but I suspect they don't really want to.
I think that's right. And I think the other issue is how difficult it is to actually get decent prison staff. I mean, it's not prison officers. I mean, it's not an easy job. Far from it. It's a really tough job. It's not particularly well paid. And over the recent years, they've had quite a lot of problems recruiting people to do it, having to draft people in from abroad and so on. So I think you're right that there's no political will to create a great more prison space.
It's just such a shambles. Let's have a listen to Good Morning Britain, or rather West Streeting, the Health Secretary, the massively overrated, self-regarding Health Secretary, West Streeting, ruling out the very idea that he could be putting his eye on Keir Starmer's job. Have a listen.
Honestly, I think if the Prime Minister
so
knew
the Prime Minister has lost control of his own people within number 10 Downing Street?
I wouldn't put it like that. I would say that there are some people in Downing Street who evidently do not model the behaviours and style of leadership that the Prime Minister models. And
so the Prime Minister should find out who this person is and sack them?
Oh, look, my advice to the Prime Minister this morning is don't waste a single minute thinking about any of this nonsense. Keep doing what he's doing. Keep rolling his sleeves up, keep attacking the problems that are facing this country and deliver the change this country is crying out for. That is the only thing that really matters. This stuff is like Westminster bubble nonsense. That's what we're in politics for. It's not self-service, it's public service, and whoever in number 10 has briefed this should remember that.
Thanks, Wes. Like you're not one of the people who are plotting against the Prime Minister, as is Ed Miliband, as is Angela Rayner. And that's where the danger here is. Never mind West Streeting. I actually think, given the dynamics of the Labour Party, despite his own ambitions, that he's probably an outrider. The problem here is that the forces rallying against Starmer are from the left. And therefore, there is a very real possibility, there is a genuine possibility that this coup could result in Starmer going by Christmas. And rather than West Streeting and all his dreams, it is more likely that we'll end up with Prime Minister Ed Miliband or Angela Rayner, maybe not in that order, but those two could be at the helm, and that doesn't bear thinking about. But I think the main headline here, Isabel, is this coup is very, very serious. At number 10 Downing Street, we know Keir's gone into full bunker mode. He's lashing out, apparently, furiously at nearly every cabinet minister, many of whom are completely bemused because they're not plotting against him, but Keir Starmer is trying to work out who. But this is serious. This is real.
Well, I actually don't blame anyone for plotting against Keir Starmer, because he could hardly have done a worse job, could he? No. I mean, I know we're thinking it could be worse, and I'm sure all sorts of bad things can still happen. But if I were in the cabinet, I would most certainly be plotting against Keir Starmer. After all, he's driven his party to the brink of extinction. I mean, it's right on the precipice, isn't it? That poll in the last few days that showed Labour in third place, that is an existential threat to a party that is used to having power every few elections pass between it and the Tory party. Keir Starmer has the unusual, extraordinary distinction of being the most unpopular Prime Minister on record in modern history. And his party has had the most rapid fall from popularity of any political party in modern times. So they're right to be plotting. The question is, for the voter, for the rest of us, is there any hope of anything better, or does it only get worse?
As I just said in my monologue, you thought Starmer was bad. You ain't seen nothing yet. I mean, imagine Ed Miliband, and it's a serious possibility. By far, by a country mile, the most popular cabinet secretary among Labour's rank and file. And when I say that, I mean the vast majority of Labour people who are left-wing, far left, most of them. Ed Miliband, among them, is by far and away the most popular cabinet minister. Second is Angela Rayner. Those are the two you've got to watch. As I say, you thought Starmer was bad, just you wait. But extraordinary times, because, as I say, this is real. The Labour rank and file, Labour and the Labour MPs have realised this guy is a dead duck. He will definitely lose them the next election, and more to the point, and this is where he's in big trouble, many of these MPs in the more marginal seats, in the Red Wall and all that, they fear that with Starmer at the helm, they are doomed at the next election. Yeah. They want to get rid of him now.
That's right. I can't help thinking of something that's a slightly tasteless analogy, but I think about that plane in 9/11 that was going to crash, basically, and the brave passengers stormed the cockpit, and everybody, I'm afraid, perished anyway. And that is what it slightly feels like with this Labour Party. It's going down. That's the reality. I mean, there are 3 years, 4 years to go before the next election. All sorts could happen. Of course, there could be a dramatic revival, but it's hard to see how the threat is staved off from both left and right. And so there you have these frantic cabinet ministers, likely egged on by any number of backbenchers, who, much as they protest that they've nothing to do with it, and I saw that those MPs in the so-called in the north in the Red Wall are saying, "Oh, we've got nothing to do with this, and if there's going to be any leadership challenge, we need to be consulted." But look, they are looking at their own seats, and they're seeing that they're going to lose them, and so they're thinking, well, we're going to have to storm the cockpit. You know, maybe we're going to go down anyway, but at least it's a chance.
But here's another aspect. This is another indication, another more evidence, if you like, that Keir Starmer, I'm sure he's a great lawyer. Actually, I'm not that sure, actually. He certainly wasn't that good at DPP, Director of Public Prosecutions, despite how often he tells us how brilliant he was at that job. He wasn't very good at all. But I'm sure he's a sort of better lawyer than he is a politician, because he is a lousy politician. He has been weak for a long time, vulnerable. Now, a sensible Prime Minister, a sensible party leader of Labour and the country, in this vulnerable situation would not spend all of his time abroad. Never hear Keir. The more he is abroad, the more trouble he's going to get in, the more the plotters will seek to unseat him. Even David Lammy, not perhaps the world's most brilliant man, we read at the weekend, has warned the Prime Minister, you better start spending a lot more time in Britain, because they're out to get you. The more you swan off to this ridiculous nonsense in Brazil, COP, whatever it is, and all, and everywhere, he's always getting onto planes. He loves to go abroad. It goes beyond the fact that prime ministers or country leaders like to go abroad because they get taken seriously abroad when everybody at home hates them. It goes beyond that with him. I think he's got a childlike love of climbing onto lovely jet planes and flying abroad to glamorous places. He's got to be a lot more in this country if he wants to save his backside.
Well, I did something a bit odd today. I looked back at one of the key interviews he gave in the run-up to the general election. And one of the things he kept emphasising in this interview, and it was well worth watching again, actually, was that he would always put country before party.
Which country?
Well, precisely. Other countries before his own country. Yeah, maybe all those countries that he likes gadding around to. And I was just left thinking, well, that just isn't true, is it? Because if you put your party first, you would definitely resign. And if you put your country first, you would also definitely resign. So basically, you're only putting yourself first at this point, and your love for the trappings of office.
And my personal belief is that, Starmer is not going to last till 2029. There's no doubt about that. Labour can't risk that. I'd always thought that the most probable moment for his defenestration will be after the May local elections, when Labour are going to get a shellacking, a massive hiding at the ballot box, and they'll get rid of him and replace him with someone else. Because if to do so before, to put a new leader in before the shellacking at the local elections, that'll make it look like it's the new leader's fault.
Yes.
So that's what I'd always thought. And I think a lot of plotters, a lot of political strategists in Labour had always felt the same. But I think they're starting to panic. I think they're starting to say, this guy is so bad, we've got to get rid of him ASAP, as soon as humanly possible. Never mind the local elections, let's do it now. Let's have a happy Christmas without Keir as our leader. I think it's a possibility.
Yeah, I think it's odds against for the reasons that you brilliantly set out there. That if they install someone new before next May and they still get an absolute hammering, which I'm sure they will, then that kind of tarnishes the new guy or woman, whoever it may be. But I agree also that they are panicking and there's a lot of thrashing around and kind of what on earth we can do. It is difficult, as I think everybody knows, to unseat a Labour leader that doesn't want to go. He clearly doesn't want to go. So I'm afraid we're probably stuck with this guy right up until spring or summer next year, hopefully not beyond. It's inconceivable that he leads them into the next election.
No, I reckon they'll get a real hammering in the local elections in May, mainly from Reform. By the way, he was out and about yesterday. We played the footage last night, saying, "Oh, the trouble with Reform is it's a racist party, it's racist policies." This divisive nonsense. This divisive nonsense again proves he's a very poor politician. You know, you cannot. You know, there's nothing to in any way suggest Nigel Farage and his party are racist. They have policies that are different to Labour. It doesn't make them racist. So he's still banging that drum, which I think is irresponsible and divisive and a really bad tactic. So he's still on about that. And meanwhile, he loses more and more and more of support to Reform. Let's talk about poor little Sara Sharif. She is the 10-year-old, or was the 10-year-old, who was tortured to death by her brutal father. This guy, Irfan Sharif, he had a long history of domestic violence, attacking women and children. So he was homeschooling little Sara, and there were fears, because of his background and his history, that you know, she could be being beaten because neighbours had heard screams and everything. Now this kid, this poor little kid, who died in August 2023, she had suffered, it was discovered, 100 injuries, tied up she was, hooded in a plastic bag, secured with parcel tape around her head, before being battered with a cricket bat, metal pole and a rolling pin, strangled until her neck broke and burnt with an iron, and also bitten. Then she died. Now, because of this guy, Irfan Sharif's history of violence, children and women, they were being monitored. So social workers were turning up at the house. Now, all of a sudden, they turned up, and this little girl, Sara Sharif, was suddenly dressed in a hijab, full sort of Muslim female attire. Nobody else in the family, no other women in the family wore hijabs or burqas or anything like that. The social workers neglected, fearing, they thought she was getting beaten, so they needed to check for bruising. But because she was wearing a hijab, they didn't want to look under the hijab, to look for bruises, because they thought they might cause offence to Islam. So their fears about being thought to be disrespectful to Islam, perhaps Islamophobic, for them took priority over the welfare, even the life of a little girl. It's just unbelievable. This has all come out in a new safeguarding report which has been issued today. It's an extraordinary story. It's the story of our times, isn't it? It reminds me of the rape gang scourge, the rape gang scandal that so many people in authority, social workers, teachers, coppers, local politicians turned a blind eye to the fact that thousands of girls were getting tortured and raped, drugged, caged, treated like animals. Turned a blind eye to this. Vulnerable young white girls mostly. They think maybe as many as 250,000 around the country. They turned a blind eye to it because most of the perpetrators were Muslim men of Pakistani origin, so they didn't want to be accused of Islamophobia or racism. Same old syndrome. Here we have it again. Unbelievable. And a little girl died. Let's talk to the Chief Executive of Freedom from Abuse, Marilyn Hawes. Welcome, Marilyn. Well, I've laid out the story there. Your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts I don't think are speakable on airtime. I mean, this morning I was called by another media station. I was just getting in the car in a happy mood, sunny day. I immediately became absolutely enraged, and I have felt a mixture of emotions all day between outrage and utter sadness. This dear, sweetheart little girl, because people are so engrossed in, oh, are we being racist? You know, she was offered on the altar of racism as a sacrifice. And no white, good thinking, brought up in this country with a moral compass and an ethical compass, thought to step outside of that and see this child. She wasn't just being killed, she was tortured, utterly tortured. Now, I don't blame the school because the school made the complaints. Now, I mean, I was a deputy head, and I have to say, over time, when I was in this situation, nothing like this, that if I didn't get the response I wanted, I really kicked the flesh until that door opened and I was responded to. And that's the problem. So many, all social workers now are working remotely. And this job is so intense, it's so overloaded. You're newly qualified. You need the mentoring and the oversight of senior social workers. And as for that idiot, I'm sorry, I'm so angry, Kevin, I'm so angry. The man from, I mean, oh, we do apologise. No, you haven't broken the dinner service or the crystal glasses. You've just smashed a child's life to death because no one did their job competently. Complete incompetence. And then they turned up at the wrong address. The day before she was killed, they turned up at the wrong address. So why didn't they find the right address? But the problem is with the system, you can't enforce entry. So you can go down, you can't kick a door in, you can't enforce entry. That needs to change. Homeschooling needs to have a register because that's where abusive parents, not all, but I know some excellent homeschooling, but nonetheless, that's where they hide. And as you rightly say, why didn't someone just look under the hijab and say, hang on a minute, because the school had reported bruises and all of that.
Because the kid was taken out of school, wasn't it, and then homeschooled.
Exactly.
But the real sort of telling moment was all of a sudden, with no history of wearing hijab or Muslim female clothes, suddenly Sara started turning up for school wearing all of these.
Yes.
This was when there were suspicions that she could be being beaten, but nobody, especially the social workers, dared to look at...
The school did complain. They complained and they told social services, and I get these all the time from schools where you truly have to phone about 20 times and get seriously offensive before anybody in social services replies. And I mean, I get involved with it and it drives me insane. This child had been in the care of 2 foster parents. Now, over 2 years ago, any child, it's deemed, and rightly so, that any child in a domestic abuse situation is now meted as a victim of abuse. That's been around for 2.5 years. It was made law. So, we can't because we're racist. You know what? Get a life and smell the coffee. Your hands are dirtied and bloodied because you didn't respond and you were absolutely inept at your job. And and what are they going to do now? Oh, we're sorry. So that means, does everybody now stay in post? Does the person in charge of the council resign because he jolly well needs to?
Well, I'll tell you, there also should be a change of policy. If a child is suspected of being the victim of violent abuse by parents or whoever, and they're wearing a hijab, the policy should be, never mind that sacred religious costume, remove it, check for bruises. No more, oh, let's not offend Islam. It's extraordinary. What do you make also, Marilyn, of the fact that the reviewers concluded that no one should face the sack, as Sara's death was not caused by, and I quote, one specific malfunction within the safeguarding system. They said instead the blame for these killings lies with the perpetrators. Well, of course it does. But the people who are supposed to protect her, people should be sacked for this, right?
heads need to roll. And honestly, I hadn't read that bit. I didn't know that,
Yeah.
Kevin. That's made me even more angry now, because of course it's always down to the perpetrator every single time.
Yeah.
It is. But a child hasn't got... She was 10 years old. What was she going to do to defend herself? I mean, what could she do? And those children, I just spent...
Well, also, here's another point. I mean, this has been covered before, Marilyn, but how did the system manage to put this girl into the care of her father, who was a long-term domestic violence perpetrator? He was put on a domestic violence perpetrator program in 2016, and he admitted to extensive and wide-ranging domestic abuse of both women and children, and yet they let this kid go back into his care. What is that about? There's loads of people who need to be fired, aren't there?
Because, Kevin, you're dealing with a load of... I'm sorry, I don't like to see lefty, righties, whatever. You're dealing with a bunch of do-gooders who think that people will change. These people don't change. They absolutely don't change. I mean, I've dealt with abusive people for 23 years. I was in an abusive relationship. They do not change. And it's time these people grew a spine and actually smelt the coffee and understood the nature of the people that they are dealing with, instead of thinking, oh, you know, they've said sorry, you know. But as for the leader of the council, you see, this is it. Anyone that touched this case should now be sacked, because you did not protect that child. There were plenty of opportunities, and in the NHS, to protect her, and this beautiful, beautiful child has been tortured to abuse. And also culpable are the neighbours. You cannot tell me you're living in terraced houses and you can't hear the screaming of a child who's being beaten by a cricket bat, burnt with an iron and suffocated with plastic bags, hasn't heard a child scream. You can ring the police anonymously, and that is no excuse that they were frightened of being called racist. I couldn't give a damn what I was being accused of. A child's life has ended because you didn't have the spine to speak up. And yes, I'm angry. I'm so angry.
I can tell that, Marilyn. I can tell that. I mean, just to complete the story, if you like, following poor little Sara's death in 2023, her 43-year-old father, Irfan, and his partner, her stepmother, Beinash Betul, she's 30. They went on the run to his native Pakistan. He thought he'd got away with it. He phoned 999 to confess the killing and then headed for Pakistan. But he was captured there and extradited and brought back to face trial at the Old Bailey, and they're both doing life now. But lots of other people... This girl, it's quite clear from this that this poor little girl, if the authorities had their wits about them, could have been saved. First of all, she should never have been put in this guy's charge. And secondly, the social workers should have had the guts to lift her hijab up and check whether or not she'd been bruised. So,
but also, Kevin, the school had seen the bruises, whether they lifted up the hijab or not. They had reported the bruises. There's no excuse. But the system has to change, where, all right, they went to the wrong address. That's incompetence.
Yeah.
But even if you go to the right address, the parents do not have to let you in. You cannot kick the door in and just go, I mean, coming in to see your child. You can't do that. That law has to change. And I mean, and also we need to get... Children who are being homeschooled should be on a register. I know loads of people, as I said, that are brilliant homeschoolers, but it is where people run to hide away from authorities, because there isn't a register. But there's no excuse here. There's no excuse. I mean, from top down, across and down, you know, everyone around this child has failed. Has anything moved on from Victoria Colombo? Very little. Very little. How long ago was that? 20 years ago? And still we are having these cases because of the unprofessionalism, the lack of commitment and dedication from those services that are there for the children. And yet again, and we never stop hearing this, because the system is broken.
We're looking at the pictures of this little girl, and it's just heartbreaking to see.